welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television International. Today being the 4th of September 2023. Quite a number of stories on the paper. We're seeing that Tinubu is actually planning a summit in India where he will be attending, and then other talking about his 8-point agenda where he hopes the ministers will also help him to accomplish. So we have quite a number of the stories on the paper, so we'll employ you to sit tight as we go through the stories this morning. I am Sarah Laishadash, and I'll be doing this with Rachel Taxi. Good morning.
Morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
Great. How was the weekend?
The weekend was great. How was yours?
Fine, thank you. With lots of rain, but we thank God for it. To our viewers, we're live on Facebook and on YouTube. Please do well to follow us live there. Drop your comment or your contribution of any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. And we shall run through the paper. Rachel will be taking us through the Punch newspaper.
On the Punch newspaper, foreign exchange domestic operators lament over 40 aircraft grounded abroad. State NLC 2UC other workers to join nationwide strike. Federal government plans mining firm pushes gold and 6 other minerals. You can find more details on page 34. The big story on the paper, election petitions. Tribunals decide Tinubu 25 governors' cases this September. Tribunals reserve judgment in Lagos, Sokoto, Kano. Other parties resort to prayers. Another writer saying APC not under pressure, says legal advisors. Labour Party, PDP confident of victory. You can find details of this statement on page 2. And we have pictures of the governors that are awaiting the results at the tribunal, and also that of the president and Atiku. At the downside of the paper, GTCO grows profit to 347 billion naira, assets now 8.5 trillion naira. Waste managers urge Sanwo-Olu probe accumulated debt. Marketers get foreign investors backing for 30,000 gas stations. You can find more details on page 26, and that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at this day newspaper, starting with the big story. Buhari saved Nigeria from graft, says Garba Shehu. Says his success in fight against corruption unprecedented. You can find more of the story inside the paper. Coming from the CBN, federal government recorded $17.18 billion inflow, 1.43 trillion naira fiscal deficit in the first quarter of 2023. You can do out start reading on the front page and continue inside the paper. And also we've seen Tinubu ministers industries depart for the G20 summit today, which will hold in India. Also, we have Sanwo-Olu flags of distribution of food items in Lagos. You can find that inside the store, the paper. And we have a picture story here where we have Enugu Investment and Economic Growth Stakeholders Roundtable. It held during the weekend, so if you want to know what they discussed in the state, you can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of stories that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, federal government targets 20 trillion naira annually from tax revenues to review 6 trillion naira tax incentive given to entities, says $3 billion Afrexim Bank loan on course. You can find more details on page 6. UK granted 132,000 visas to Nigerians in first half of 2023, a statement coming from the British envoy. Ayatollah visits Lagos port today for inspection of collapsing berths and quays. You can find more details on page 3. GTCO releases 2023 half-year audited result of 327.4 billion naira profit before tax. The big story on the paper, corruption. I was on a rescue mission, a statement coming from Buhari blasts Adoke over PNID Ajakuta claims. More details can be found on page 3. PDP wins Edo local government polls as Labour Party APC kick. 15 local government areas, 224 communities affected, displaced by flood in Niger. And on Plateau local government crisis, court restrained IGP from allowing APC elected chairman into council secretariats. More details of the story can be found on page 22. At the downside of the paper, many injured as event center collapse on guests in Ekiti. The details of that story can be found on page 27, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Right on the Blueprint newspaper, we have 4 years after constitutional amendment, state reluctant to build own managed correctional facility. This is an investigation with the writer saying 22.9 billion naira annual cost of feeding inmate excruciating, says the federal government. Only Imo Edo have shown interest. And we have criminologists seek review of panel code as way out of congestion. You can find more of that story on page 6. PDP clears Edo local government polls. APC federal government cries foul. Well, that happened during the weekend where we saw the entire local government in Edo state during the local government election. They actually won. And here we're seeing Labour Party and PDP are crying foul. So you can do out to read more detail of that story on page 5. Alleged UBRDA fraud concern citizens petition, HOS and others. You can find that on page 17. 1 trillion naira anchor borrowers loan. Rice farmers lament 6 Tinubu's intervention. You can find on page 17. Coming from Kogi Guba election, we will ensure victory for APC Ododo in November, coming from Abiodun. And on extortion, call your corps in Kwara to order. CIRDEV tells the Federal Road Safety Corps members. You can find that story on page 13. Nigeria recorded 1.430 trillion naira fiscal deficit in the first quarter of 2023, a report coming from the CBN. And on tax, Dangote Cement remits 412.9 billion naira to Federation accounts in 3 years. Downside, we have federal government target 50% GDP in solid mineral sector, issue a 30-day ultimatum to illegal miners, with the rider plans solid mineral corroboration and mine policy. Well, we hope that all the illegal miners will take this warning seriously. You can find that on page 6. We have a picture story on the front page of the paper, so you can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Daily Times, drama as lady accuses father of being behind her barrenness. You must release me and my womb today, Papa. What a sad story. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 5. The big story, palliative distribution. Adamawa residents slam Fintiri alleged fraud in rebranding foodstuff with his photograph inscription. Accuse him of vendetta. Opposition party supporters totally stabbed. Warns the word from state government. You can find more details inside the paper. How Emefiele messed up Nigeria's economy. People will suffer many more years. A statement coming from a financial expert. You can find the details on the front page and continue on page 4. Analysts anticipate mixed sentiments as investors cherry-pick sound stock. You can find more details on page 17. Rivers record over 240 fatalities is resurgence of violence. Flood sweeps many away, body recovered in another community. After decades, finally Bajama gets district head. At the downside of the paper, Japan annual trade value jumps to $10 billion. You can find more details on page 15, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
You know, this flood story actually got me emotional at this moment, because during the weekend, quite a number of stories coming from various communities. I mean, there was one coming from Bauchi, where we saw quite a number of homes have been swept away, and then for a period of years right now, not just this year, this has been a community that has been swept away by flood on a daily basis. And we know that the way water is, it has its force, that once it doesn't get a passage, it creates a passage for itself. And you and I have keep emphasizing the importance of having good drainages for the waters to pass. We keep emphasizing people to stop building by waterways. We keep emphasizing on the fact that even if you have to do a building, have a very good foundation and all of that. But then a lot of things are not working well, and then we see, I think you and I have also made emphasis on the some of the hazard illegal mining has actually caused erosion and all of that. And here we're seeing that the body of a man was stripped away and then the body was recovered in another community. And quite a number of stories. I mean, the previous paper we saw, we had even in Kogi, we have even in Nasarawa, and these are some of the states that already we had NIMET giving warning that flood is going to come. But then we keep saying, beyond giving warning to people, what are we doing as a country? What are we doing as a state? Because it's not just about saying, do this. Are the state governments involved in this? Are the local government chairman and the councillors involved in this? Going to the various wards, are they all, carried along, so that you don't hear that we're saying it on the TV and then it will surprise you, somebody in the village doesn't have a TV set. And then how does it get down to the grassroots to be sure that they are? Because at the end of the day, they are the ones at the receiving end. And it breaks my heart, in as much as Cameroon has blocked their dam, so it's no longer coming into the country. But the rain is still falling, so you know that definitely a lot of people will record hazard. We saw that farmers last week are complaining because they borrow from the CBN to plant. So if they are unable to pay back, what then happens to them? So quite a lot of sad story when it comes to the issue what flood will do. So we're looking forward to the government. The reason why I'm bringing it up, because looking at the 8-point agenda, the president, because it seems it's no longer about his manifestos anymore, but he has listed what he hoped to achieve. And we saw eradication of poverty, security, food, and all of that. So there was no how we're going to be talking about food security when flood is actually doing disaster by stripping away people's farmlands and causing them a lot of havoc. So we hope that something will be done, because if the president hopes to achieve one of those agendas, which is food security, then we have to do something about the flood. Even though I know it's September, so very soon the rain will be going, but then we have to do something to prevent all of this things, so that even when it comes to the dry farming, which is irrigation farming, farmers will actually have a very nice and also be comfortable eventually. So we look forward to that.
Yes, Stella, you just took the words out of my mouth concerning how does it get to the grassroots level when it comes to flooding, because we keep seeing information here in the papers, we're reading it every day, and it feels like almost everybody is getting that same information. However, with what is happening, it means everybody is not getting this information, and it's important we get it down to the grassroots, because there are certain things that not everybody is knowledgeable about, regardless how intelligent you are. I don't know what I will sell. For example, let me use myself, if I must put myself in that picture. So if I am buying a land, I need an expert to tell me this place is this and this and that. But then we're talking about people living in villages, we're talking about people who are not that educated, who don't know who to ask and all of that, and then they find themselves in a situation that they need nothing but help totally coming from the government and the agencies that are in charge. Because for this man that was being washed up, if only he got the information on time, perhaps he could have evacuated, or except if it is for the case of him being stubborn and refusing to go, which I want to rule that out, and I want to believe that a lot of victims, it's not as a result of stubbornness, but because the information didn't get to them on time, and they had no idea that they have made their buildings on waterways. Because who are the people when a town is being planned? Town planning is supposed to rearrange. That's one of the things the government in many states are neglecting. Over the years, what have the government done about town planning? If people's houses are situated in wrong places, they're supposed to know, and over the time, the government, you ask them to move out of there, it becomes a government property. You do what is important, and these people get settled. But do we have the government, past administrations, the administrations before now, doing the needful to help? Because it's not just about telling these people evacuate. You also have to help them start making a living in another place, because this is their land. So it's important, Stella, that the people that are in the position to help out when it comes to this flooding wake up and make sure that the information keeps going down. And for areas of people that already know, we've witnessed this last year, I believe that we should also play our own part, and you know what, this could happen again because this area is flood prone. So if we experienced flooding last year, there's a likelihood of it happening this year, and then we don't have to wait for the government to come to us. This is where I as an individual will now call the government to me and play my own part as such. So yes, it's really a sad one, but I believe that people are working on it, and we will all join hands and make sure that such sad stories are not making it on the papers anymore.
You just said it right, Richard, and I hope that we'll start having warning for the rains of 2024 now.
Yeah.
Because believe you me, Richard, the water level is increasing, not just in Nigeria, all over. The climate change has affected, so definitely the water level has increased. So we will be hearing stories of flooding. So I personally have prepared my mind, and I think it's something we have to all prepare our mind. Also, we do something, the activities of man, we keep doing that to the the climate, and then we keep seeing changes. So we hope we do something about that. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper, where we have TUC snub NLC strike call, calling workers out of work premature. We will continue to dialogue with the government to ease subsidy pain. So you can do well to grab the paper. We're seeing that again. NLC is talking about going for maybe 2 days protest and then calling on strike again. So quite a very sad one. You can do well to start reading on the front page, and then you continue reading the story inside the paper. Illegal miners get 30-day ultimatum to vacate sites. You can find that on page 4. Coming from marketers, why we can't break NNPCL import monopoly. Well, you do well to read that story inside the paper. We have NMA caution held workers on incessant strike. And we have pupils' performance to determine teachers' promotion in Ondo State. Well, I hope we see that in other states, that the performance of the pupil will actually determine whether the teachers will get promotion or not. So that means teachers have quite a lot to do. And I hope that they get the support coming from the commissioners and also the Ministry of Education. Tinubu target global capital in India. President leads for the G20 summit. You can start reading on the front page and continue inside the paper. Foreign reserves, Naira appreciate unstable oil outlook. Well, we hope we'll do something that it becomes stable permanently, not that today it's stable, tomorrow it's down again. Flood risks rise in Lagos, Nasarawa, Bayelsa coastal communities. You can find more of the story inside the paper. Kaduna hires 7,000 vigilantes to battle bandits. 9 killed in Ongu, and then we have Oshun crashes. 9 killed in Ogu. Oshun crashes. You can find that on page 28. We have the picture story here where we are seeing France must go, still on the issue of the Niger coup that we have. And then we remember last week they said that the ambassador of France should leave the country, and here we are seeing one of it saying France must go. Well, you do well to grab the paper and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On First News newspaper, release detained Ogun Council Chairman Falana urges DSS, advises Governor Abiodun to sue for libel. You can find more details inside the story, inside the paper, rather. The big story on the paper: oil pipeline contract extension. Niger Delta groups battle Tompolo as so-called Wobo groups threaten violent showdowns, warn of impending bloodbath in the creeks, vow to resist extension of Tampolo's pipeline surveillance contract, appeal to Tinubu to urgently intervene. I never authorized Ogunloye to award $6 billion Mambila contract to Sunrise, says Obasanjo. Sanwo-Olu promises to pick bills of 12-year-old boy with missing intestine. And on council poll, PDP wins all 18 Edo local government areas. Ex-Justice Minister Adoke lacks moral standing to accuse Buhari of corruption. A statement coming from Garba Shehu. Still on First News, Nigeria extends Pisero's contract that is for coaching. You can find more details inside the paper. Buhari's top 8 Onochi in UK accommodation mess. Naira will soon be stronger than dollar. Statement coming from Pastor Adeboye, a prediction. Don't know how true that statement is, but you can find more details inside the paper. Rivers government shuts AIT Ray Power FM's operation. At the downside of the paper, police storm kidnappers then in Bauchi and rescue 16 victims. That's all the news on First News newspaper.
Right, let's take a look at the metrics paper where we have Naira's free fall. Pastor Adeboye predict Naira will regain value soon. Tinubu chases FDI to G20 summit in India to prioritize currency swap agreements with China. You can find more on page 2. Solid minerals will boost Nigeria's economy by 50%, Daily Alake is saying. You can find more of the story in the paper. Governor Sani others probe into Kaduna mosque killing during the weekend. About 4 people were being killed, and no wonder we're having a recruit of fresh 7,000 vigilantes to look into the issue of banditry and kidnapping in that state. Federal government issue illegal miners 30-day ultimatum to review license. More can be found inside the paper. And we have a little column here where we see coming from Buhari, I saved Nigeria from corruption. And then from Lagos State, Lagos won against crossing blue rail line, says it's dangerous and electrified. PDP wins all 18 local government areas in Edo council election. You can see the numbers down where people that have been accredited and then people that won inside the paper. We're still having here Rivers Governor short AIT Rail Power FM operations. You can find that story on page 8, and that's all on the metrics paper.
On Daily Independent, Labour Party calls for cancellation of Edo Council poll. Obaseki says election outcome reaffirms PDP dominance. Huriwa asks Tinubu to deal with naval officers complicit in crude oil theft. The big story on the paper, foreign exchange liquidity constrained to linger despite reserves boost. You can start with the details on the front page and continue on page 10. Serap sues Tinubu over banning of 25 journalists from Aso Rock. Domestic investors maintain dominance on NGX as index up 3.4% in August. Federal government identifies states that may be impacted by flooding. Tinubu 4 ministers jet out to India today for G20 summit. You can find more details on page 6. NDLEA intercepts drugs at Lagos airport and arrest kingpin. You can find more details of that arrest on page 8. Still on Daily Independent, federal government gives illegal miners 30 days to join artisanal cooperative. Says solid minerals will contribute 50% to Nigeria's GDP. At the downside of the paper, GTCO reports profit before tax of 327.4 billion naira in half year of 2023. More details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
Richard, it seems most of the papers is carrying the 30 days being given to illegal miners
Yes.
to vacate the sites and then get their license
True.
proper and all of that. And you and I have talked about the issue of illegal mining. We cannot overemphasize, even though it seems each time we talk, we sound like broken records. But then we will not stop talking about illegal mining because somewhere, somehow, we are directly or indirectly being affected, whether we like it or not. We've seen the effect. We know people, neighbors. We've seen places, maybe abandoned mining sites and all of that, and we know what this illegal mining has done. And lots of money that could be realized if only these things are being done legally. I remember when we were looking at even the issue of illegal, talking about illegal refineries, and then what does it take for these illegal refineries to become legal and the government can actually have full custody of all of these places. But then we're going to look at illegal mining. I think it's quite a lot. I think it's beyond just giving them a 30-day warning. What is the government going to do? What are the sanctions they'll be giving to those who are behind it? Because one thing is for sure, when you talk to these miners that are actually, mining illegally without any consent of the government, they have one thing or the other to tell you. It's either There's no job, so they decided to do this. And then you now ask, okay, who are the people patronizing these miners? You realize that they are big and mighty people. So why not start dealing with this from the grassroots level? Because in us, just the way we look at those who are actually smuggling drugs, they don't work on their own. They always work with somebody big up there. And so when we deal with all of these things from the root, then we know that we've actually done enough, because not only we keep seeing legal mining has caused erosion, we've seen a lot of deforestation as a result of that, because they keep cutting trees to get more space to do all of that. And then we know what the chemicals get to our waterways, kill our fishes, destroy our plantation, and quite a lot. When you take a statistics of states that illegal mining is happening, let's take places like Ogun or Shun that have cocoa farming. A lot of it get being destroyed as a result of that. So we hope that the government will intensify beyond just giving them 30 days to vacate and give you license. What can be done to avoid? Because when you chase them from this place, they look for another place, and that is how they keep going in circles with the government. So we hope that more sanctions will be done beyond just giving them the 30 days and then telling them to provide their license for mining.
Yes, Sele, it's not just about giving 30 days and waiting, as you said. It's time to investigate. It's about busting them, because now the federal government is talking about those that need to join artisanal cooperatives, meaning let them register and license. We have those that probably their licenses have expired, their contract is way due, they are no longer supposed to be operating. Perhaps these are the people that follow due process of doing what they're doing and are supposed to renew or stop completely, but are still going on with their activity. However, what the federal government or the government entirely, we are going to look from the federal government level down to the state level, because I believe that the minister has to collaborate with state government, because this is where the major activities are happening. Is that you also have to go under and discover those that are not even aware. Those are, we're not talking about only illegal, but those who are on more of a covered mining operation, that the federal government might not even be aware that there is this mining site somewhere and there's this and that going on. These are the people that we are even supposed to target the most, because they are doing more. For those who might have once registered or are known, it's easier for you to give them an ultimatum to renew or do the needful. But what about those that haven't been recorded on the books and are out there and making so much? And just as you said, they are moving from one place to another. So I believe it's more about putting a complete halt, a total halt to the activities of mining in the country as it is, until all of these things is being sorted out. The minerals are not going anywhere. So it's not a time-bound process where if we don't do it now, we're losing. No, these are solid minerals that are still there. They're not going anywhere. So a halt to fix everything and put things on ground properly wouldn't hurt when it comes to that sector in regard. But then I hope that the minister will follow due process and will go fire for fire when it comes to illegal mining, because my concern is that until the federal government and the state government are able to be in 70% control of mining activities in the country, this 50% contribution to the GDP of the country will not be seen whatsoever, in as much as, yes, mining has the potential to do that for the economy, but until the government and the appropriate authorities are in control, which means it doesn't necessarily mean that the government are the one doing this mining, but these people that are supposed to be registered, of course, are generating revenue, are giving their remittances to whatever agreement it will be. Then when you are in absolute control, then before we can be able to see this good to the GDP contributed by mining in the country. But since we have a minister that is out there strong, I believe that if the necessary things have been done, shouldn't be something that we should sleep on, because it has been too long. Let it be now and then done properly, and then eventually we'll be able to generate the revenue that is expected from mining.
Well, we hope to see more being done coming from the minister and collaboration with other ministries as well.
Yes.
Well, at this moment, we'd love to take a break so we can let you chew the stories, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines. Please stay tuned with us.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zuma Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on Aqua Television International. We've been looking at quite a number of stories where we've seen that the ministry have actually given ultimatum talking about the government about illegal miners to leave in the next 30 days and also get license for those who license have expired or those who have not registered, so they can be duly registered. And also the president will be leaving with some ministers for a summit in India. So we hope to hear more positivity coming out from that summit. Our phone number is displayed on your screen at this moment. We'd love to hear what your take is, what your contribution is concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. I still have Rachel Tanda with me. Thanks so much, Rachel.
You're welcome.
All right, please, our viewers and our callers, do remember that when you call us to turn down the volume of your TV set so we can hear you clearly in the studio, and then try and summarize your point in a minute. Make it relevant to what we are talking about on the paper this morning. Thank you so much for your collaboration. Well, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. Cyber criminals exploit weak regulations to harvest data and defraud Nigerians. Now we are having here where we are seeing from POS terminal, part of the places they used to actually fraud, online transaction, betting sites, debit cards, phone apps, and then we're seeing that fraudsters have actually leveraged these different means to access customers' data. And I'm happy the bill that the president passed concerning protecting the data of Nigerians. And in fact, a warning was given to banks. You don't need more than what the information I've given you to run my bank. And then especially all these online apps where we see them sending a lot of things. And people, personally, I'm talking for myself, fall a victim to these scammers when you're talking about the use of ATM debit cards. And then before you realize it, something goes wrong, and then pop, 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 and you wonder what happened. I didn't use the POS to do any transaction. I'm at home with my ATM card, and then money keep leaving your account. So something seems to be wrong somewhere. And just like here, we're seeing that no wonder the paper is actually seeing like it's something the government needs to really give so much attention and focus on, because cybercrime is becoming like it's beginning to become the lead of the day eventually. So we hope to see that the government will do something. However, they need to go about to curtail this to its minimal. In fact, in as much as if it means eradicating it totally, I think Nigerians will be happy, because a lot of people have fallen victims to this cyber crime in one way or the other. So we hope to see the government be more proactive in some of the measures they put and sanction for those who are behind all of this fraud.
You know, Sele, there was once a time I described that in the first place, we're not even supposed to be having POS agents in this country in the first place, because that machine was not designed for money withdrawal. It's literally designed for transaction where you make purchase, you walk into a supermarket. When you are designing a cashless system, that is what a POS is designed for us to be able to function in a cashless system. But when you have a country that introduces policies and do not implement them rightly, do not go through the right ways and make sure they put the right things on track, you will find out that where people are not even supposed to be exploited, they end up being exploited. Because Sele, imagine if the only place we see POS working is when you walk to a supermarket, because we're operating in a cashless system. If that is what the government are hoping to achieve exactly, and you walk into a supermarket and then you are able to make your transaction, you make purchase, you don't need to go with cash. They slot it in, they withdraw, they make they debit what you have spent, and you move. And these are trusted and registered supermarket or stores or whatever it is that you went to do a transaction. Trust me, when there is a deduction that comes out of your ATM, you'll be able to know where it is coming from. And these are registered businesses. They won't even try to make a mistake of that, because it will mean a bad review for their business. But we are having situations where somehow you might even be seated and you begin to think, where did I make this transaction? Because you might have used this one, and you don't know at that point what POS point did you use that is this fault is coming from. And it only but makes it more difficult for you to be able to track, find your money, know who are the culprits involved. And these have been the situation in the country, because you just see somebody at the roadside with a stable POS agent here, and you have no option, because you are in a situation where the ATM system has failed you, and the government have decided to allow this to operate, because now the banks are also desperate, because they are not able to function as they have promised when it comes to the ATM, and they are making profit from this POS agent. Therefore, they are allowing them to exist in the first place. And then you just find out that a lot of things that are not even supposed to be happening in the first place in the country is happening. I just hope that we wake up and we truly have a government that when they bring out policies, when they want to introduce, if you say I am introducing a cashless system of banking in my economy, then I should follow due and right process that will not only make living smooth in the country, but will also protect we protect the citizens of that country, protect their finances, protect their information, protect everything that is important to that individual that have trusted your system and are willing to cooperate with you as the government. But then I just hope that we see that happening in our economy.
Richard, it just seems you just said everything the way it is. But I'm looking forward to, just like you said, somebody that will monitor this.
Yes.
It's one thing for the government to want to bring out a policy, but somehow the implementation, monitoring and making sure that things are being done. Just like we see, the POS is point of sales, just like you said. So I'm not expecting to see POS everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm just expecting to see where I want to make a transaction.
Yes.
So we hope that people will end up not falling victims of scammers everywhere, as you call of all these cyber criminals. We're still on the Guardian newspaper. We're having hike in fees. Fresh worry over dropout out of school children. This is really a sad one. With the hike of fees, we hope the government will come through for parents, and then even though we've seen their states that have slashed the fees to about 50%, we hope to see other states doing the same as well. Single-term tenure is enough for president and governors. This is an editorial you can find on page 2. Unpaid claims of failed underwriters worsen sector battered image. You can find that also inside the paper. NLC insists on strike despite government overturns as new tax regime commences. You can find that on page 6. Federal government gives ultimatum to illegal miners and target 50% GDP contribution. We hope that there will be a synergy between the NLC and TUC, because it seems they are not actually on the same page whether to go on the strike or not to go on strike. I know quite a number of Nigerians have come out to express their dissatisfaction with the labor, because it seems they are not speaking for them anymore as they should be. Labor will say they are going on strike today, and then after a day of protest, they go back and sleep, and then nothing happens. Nigerians want to see labor speaking for them. Nigerians want to hear the union speaking, and also knowing that they are still vibrant and still hot that the way they used to be. But reverse seems to be the case. So we hope, even though nobody wants to hear that there is a strike, because whether we like it or not, it will cripple the economy. But we hope that the right things are being done. That is just the word. The right thing is being done, because when the government plays its part, the union plays its part, everything will go smoothly. I do not blame the union, even though, because when you look at it, Richard, it's very sad. The minimum wage is still 30,000, whether we like it or not. There are still local government that are still in 18,000 naira minimum wage, whether we like it or not. So It's sad when the government has to make a promise almost 100 days in office and they're yet to live up to that promise. It's very sad, and then the people definitely get affected. Civil servants don't want to go on strike. They're excited and happy working for the government. But when you don't pay them their wages as it should be, definitely they get sad. Transportation right now, it's only who can afford that can.
Yes.
Even the people that were able to buy a car last year cannot drive that car right now. Those who bought it beginning of the year cannot drive that car. Why? Because even to get access to the fuel is something else. So we hope the government and Labour will come to an agreement. We do not want to hear where TUC is having a different argument on all of this. So we hope to see more proactive measures coming from the government, even in relation to the palliative. I mean, I just heard within the weekend the local government got 4 bags of rice, and I asked, how many cups is it going to reach to everyone? How many communities are in that local government? So it's sad when you hear stories like that. So we hope to see more measures coming from our government.
Yes, Sarah, the long rope that NLC is giving the government is too long. It is too long. You are the body which giving the authority. People have entrusted you to be on the neck of the government until things start moving, and you don't have the luxury of resting until you see the government doing what the people want. And we can talk about palliatives over and over. We can talk about all these funds that the government we are waiting to receive, and it is the job of Labour to be on taking whatever drastic measures, step needed to make sure that until they see the government rolling out these plans, before you stop being on their neck. But that doesn't feel like the case now. It's just as you said, it's 1-2 days protest and they relax. Is we are going on a strike, they have a closed door, open door meeting, and the next thing, Labour is being relaxed. It's not supposed to be like that, Sele. You have to be on the government until they start rolling out this palliative, until they start putting out things to reduce the hardship of Nigerians, because maybe the noise is less. It doesn't change the reality. Fuel pump price is still very high, inflation is still rising, and people are not finding life easy. It's almost like, okay, we've talked, and then it feels like the noise is going down, but it haven't changed the reality, and the NLC is very aware of that nothing has changed concerning the standard of living in the country. So why are you giving the government long road when you're supposed to be cutting this road by now and making sure they do the needful? So yes, it's a point where we feel the NLC are not doing much, but then when you wake up to do something, do the needful and let Nigerians know that you truly have their what they need in mind, you truly have their benefits in mind.
Well, there's going to be a fake meeting today, so I'm hoping that all of these things, all of these grievances will be handled. Last week on Friday, we saw where the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs said they are hoping to leave about 15 million households out of Nigerians out of poverty. So we're hoping that that will be passed, and any other thing, just so that Nigerians can actually live very comfortable. Well, I think that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On Nigerian News Direct, Dangote Cement remits 412.9 billion naira tax to federal government in 3 years. FX inflows rise by 17.5% to $17.18 billion in the third quarter of 2023. African countries to pay $56 billion more on debt raised on capital markets. This is coming from a research. The big story on the paper, federal government targets 50% GDP contribution from solid minerals. The writer under the story, to review Mining Act, establish mines police, issue 30-day ultimatum to illegal miners. Still on the paper, NDLEA intercepts ephedrine, skunk, laughing gas consignment at Lagos Airport. Medical bill payment, Sanwo-Olu gives hope to 13-year-old with missing intestine. More details can be found on page 17. Tinubu to establish humanitarian hubs and revive N-Power. At the downside of the paper, oil companies threaten Nigeria's oil production output over non-remittance to host community trust fund. A statement coming from the NUPRC. You can find more details on page 3, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Voice of Liberty coming from the NBA, Tinubu is legitimate president as declared by the INEC. You can find more in the paper. Escalating insecurity, Kaduna train additional 7,000 vigilantes. Federal government issued 30-day ultimatum for illegal miners to review mining license. The big story coming from Minister Edu, federal government to reject N-Power scheme and pay beneficiaries. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Edu, says plans are on the way to reject the N-Power scheme to accommodate more people and ensure prompt payment of beneficiary stipends. You can find more in the paper. APC, the only vehicle to convey Nigeria to prosperity, says the chairman Ganduje. You can read more of that story. Coup's democratic reversal, citizens tired of voting, not seeing results coming from West African elders. Well, I do not think that I actually start to disagree this. I mean, I don't think citizens are tired of voting. What I think citizens are tired of in Africa is they're tired of being stumbled on. They are tired of their vote not counting. They are tired of their leaders not leading them. They are tired of underdevelopment. They are just tired of leaders that are hungry for power but are not hungry for development and prosperity in their country. That is what I think Africans are tired of. Believe you me, Rachel, if a leader will come into power and do what he or she is expected to do, when you promise us that you have 8-point agenda, 5-point agenda, even if it's just a point, if it is just an agenda you have, and you live up to that, I don't think citizens will have a problem with it. But when you have turned power and you've turned, would I say, rulership, because right now we do not have leaders anymore. We just have people who dictate to citizens what to do, how to live, where to go, and how to act. So I think that's what Africans are tired of citizens. I do not think they are tired of voting. So I think this is the time for African leaders to call themselves together. What are we not doing right? If they want to be honest to themselves, how are we going to get it right? Because all of this reshuffling of your generals, of all your colonels and all the like, it's not going to help anything, believe you me. But when you look into it, there is corruption in the land. How can we do away with that? People are hungry. How can we provide food? There's no development. How can we put basic infrastructures, basic amenities, provide them with all that they need to do? I don't think Africans will complain about anything as far as you do the right thing. But when you always come and canvass for votes and then at the end of the day you don't do what is expected, Africans will have a problem. Because if we want to practice democracy, Rachel, then we should do it to the latter. Or maybe if democracy is not for us, then we have to call ourselves together as Africans and say, okay, which system of government is going to work for us as Africans? Because it seems we are borrowing from the Western world, and then it seems it's not sitting well with a lot of people. So maybe, just maybe another school of thought will say, let us check which system of government fits us as Africans, and then let's practice it well. If that will give us what we need eventually. So we hope to hear more positivity coming from our leaders, and also even coming from people who are in the hands of affairs to do the right thing when they should do it.
Of course, Sele, as elections keep drawing close, we keep seeing excitement in Nigeria. There's always the willingness, there's always the turnout, despite whatever records might be out there of voter apathy. But there's always hope in Nigerians that, speaking for Nigeria because I have witnessed it, that we will be able to vote people into power. I think over the years we've just had leaders that have failed us and have not kept to their promise and their own side of the bargain and haven't delivered as expected. However, I keep saying that, and I truly believe that if only we will practice democracy as it is a system of government that does have the power of stabilizing the system of governance and making it better, because we have world powers and economy that are thriving on democracy. The question is, how are they doing theirs? What are we missing out? And I keep saying that one of the problems we keep seeing is corruption, Sele. We cannot remove the fact that a lot of things are the way they are because we've allowed corruption to eat our system and to blind us from doing the right things and all of that, because democracy is out there. It's plain there. It is very flexible, I keep saying it, and have the opportunity of righting whatever wrong. We have the opportunity of, after 4 years, if you don't want this person leading you, you vote another person in. Another tenor comes and go, you vote in. That is, it doesn't keep you under the bondage of one mindset for a very long period of time, but giving us the period of having different people, different visionaries coming in and out of the government to bring in something new to a country. So yes, but of course there could be room for sitting down and saying what is the way forward, and that's what we expect. It's not all about the fears coming from the African leaders and saying let's shuffle this, let's do this, military are taking over and all of that, but for us to come together, all the unions that are in charge, the African Union should come and say what is the way forward and what should be correct in our African countries to stop seeing this backwardness when it comes to governance.
Because it breaks my heart. We have quite a lot. When we talk about resources, Africa have all the resources that is needed to be the giant at all times. But then because of corruption, just like you said, underlying issues, voting and not seeing results, that's why. So we hope to see our leaders taking the right thing to do. Still on the Voice of Liberty, we have no military takeover will happen in Nigeria, but democratic coup coming from Primate Ayodele. No military takeover will happen in Nigeria, but democratic coups. We also have constitutional lawyers declare NNPCL, Afreximbank Bank, $3 billion loan illegal, threatening court action, demands transparency. You can find more of what that story means on the front page of the paper. And that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On New Telegraph, Naira redesign pushed consumers' credit to 2.35 trillion naira. This is a report for the first quarter of 2023. Federal government mulls single window option to block leakage in NDAs. This is on revenue generation. You can find more details on page 8. Tinubu foreign ministers leave for G20 summit in India today. Coming from Adeboye, Naira will bounce back stronger than dollar soon. You can't blame Southeast governors for insecurity in region, a statement coming from Abaribe. Impending flood, Benue urges residents to move to safe areas. The big story on the paper, OPL 245. You're unfit to talk about corruption, Buhari tells Adoke. Says cases ex-AGF cited as reference originated from a government in which he administered justice. You can find more details on page 2. UK issues new entry requirement for Nigerians. Airlines to deny travelers boarding without new UKE permit. Envoy says 32,000 visas granted Nigerians in the first half of 2023. Konkoso faces more trouble over alleged party front management. New leadership pathway with Konkoso movement. This is on the crisis in NNPP. You can find more details on page 4. We have a story that says builder, 2 sons died in Nwei building collapse. At the downside of the paper, we have a study, eye drops made from jelly may tackle side loss. You can find more details on page 25, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Well, I think that's how far we can go this morning. Thanks so much
You're
for
welcome,
doing this
Sally.
video. Thank you to our viewers, thank you to our supporters, the crew members, the producer, and everyone that made this program a success. Until we come here again, to have a blessed day ahead.